Welcome to Jesus-Centric Life. I'm Donna. I'm here with Pastor Josh, and we have a special guest that I am very excited to have here today. We have licensed professional counselor Betsy Bowers. That's a mouthful.
Indeed. Lots of B's. Yes.
How many degrees did you have to get all those?
You know, I only have the one master's degree, but it's like 5 letters. So MAMFTC.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, Masters of Marriage and Family Therapy and Counseling.
Wow.
So yeah.
And then all the certifications that also come with it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And you've moved since we had you on last. Tell us a little bit about that.
I work at Family Care Center in Colorado Springs, and Family Care Center has quite a few locations across the U.S. in Colorado, Arizona, Florida, and Texas, I think. So,
of course, Texas, but we'll do that another time.
Of course, Texas, represent.
That's right. And it's going well. The move's going well for you?
Great. It's going great. It's very busy. I love it. I love the opportunities. I get to work with more military families, which is actually teaching me a lot about the resilience piece and things that make the resilience challenging. So maybe we'll get into that a little bit later.
That sounds great. And we just want to thank you for coming back, making the drive today. That's not easy, but we appreciate you being here. And today we want to talk about building emotional resilience. So I want to start out, Betsy, can you help us define what is emotional resilience?
Yeah, I think the way that I like to start with that concept is thinking about flexibility. Because I work with a lot of kids, and I think one of the things that kind of comes up in the research with trauma and kids are that kids are resilient. They bounce back differently than adults do. And one of the things that I think happens with that, and something the research suggests, is that resilience is a quality of the nervous system, and it's something that's innate and built. Something that you have the capability to utilize, but you kind of have to work with it. Otherwise, it's something that just doesn't happen to you. Resilience involves your ability to move from regulation into dysregulation and back into regulation.
Okay, explain that verbiage a little bit for people that aren't familiar with it.
Absolutely. So regulation, dysregulation. Regulation is like the quality of a calm, alert nervous system where you're able to adjust to what you need to adjust to in the moment, ready to switch gears really fast. The dysregulation is more like a piece where you're in a place of either sympathetic activation, which could be the fight or flight, or parasympathetic overwhelm, which is more like a collapse or fawn or freeze. Okay. So that's a way to kind of conceptualize that. And dysregulation is not better or worse than regulation. It's just a quality of the way that we move through our day. And we all move in and out of regulation every single day.
Okay. So understanding that, then is this something that we're born with? So is Donna Patton born with an emotional resilience that's carried me, or is it something that I have to really work at?
I think that's a good question. And I think that there are ways you can see the concept as built in and ways that you can see it as something that you really have to practice and nurture as kind of a skill of regulating your emotion or your regulation, your nervous system. And I think that when you're trying to adjust to your day-to-day life, there are certain things that you can do to promote better emotional resilience and put you in a place for better emotion regulation as opposed to dysregulation. You just kind of have to set it up pretty well. And I think that's another thing. We'll get into some practical strategies as we continue talking.
So it feels just a little bit like sports then to me. Like some people are born with more coordination, more athletic ability, but like we can all kind of learn to dribble a basketball. We can kind of all learn to do this.
Absolutely.
But some people do have more of a propensity for it.
Right, right. And one of the things, I actually work with a lot of kiddos and people that have either been through complex trauma or like highly sensitive people. I don't know if you've heard of that kind of quality. But those are the people that actually have, and then the complex trauma, it's almost like their nervous system is more fine-tuned to threat. And highly sensitive people are almost more fine-tuned to notice differences in their environment. So it's not like a better or worse type thing, whereas like sports might be like a better or worse type thing. It's how you occupy the world, and if you're more oriented to what's going on around and outside you versus what's going on inside you sometimes.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Are parents helping their kids to be more emotionally resilient? Are they preparing them in this world to be more emotionally resilient?
I think that is really dependent on what the day-to-day looks like between parents and kids, because I can see a lot of, with the families that I work with, I can see a lot of good in what families do in the recent generations, especially with more focus on emotional intelligence and more on empathy and things like that. However, there are activities that are screen-driven and device-driven that can kind of lock us into this very nearsighted way of seeing things. And it makes our nervous system actually more dysregulated than regulated with that increased screen activity. And if we're not aware and varying the activity levels between different things, then kids aren't going to be as hardy or as able to switch between modes as we kind of know kids to be able to do.
I grew up on Bugs Bunny and Looney Tunes, like every Saturday, which is the only time it would come on, right? So, of course, I raised my son on it, and now they're raising my grandkids on it, right? Now, that doesn't sound like a big deal, but I just heard a study that the cartoons, that the things that kids are watching today is actually amping their anxiety and the way that the way they're programming or building it. It's not like a Looney Tunes where it's condensed in this time period. And it's not funny. It's very anxiety driven and can sometimes make them, I got to watch the next one. I have to watch the next one. What can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think there's a little bit that you can kind of consider with like the phenomenon of like YouTube use, where it's kind of like unfortunately, the way it's kind of structured, the way that the people that produce it kind of make it is so that you're driven to watch the next piece. It hooks you. It's kind of like when you're on Instagram or when you're on Snapchat or whatever. It's like it's getting you to that next slide. It's getting you to that next advertisement. It's getting you to that next thing. And it's like it's priming your nervous system to anticipate something that may or may not come that's going to be regulating or dysregulating.
When I've heard that like we're in an attention culture right now, and so like you say Looney Tunes, my kids are watching, I think it's Star Wars Rebels on Disney Plus that they love, but like they know what their bedtime is. They know when we're done. But by golly, we finish an episode and we say we're going to bed now, and that has hooked them. It's hooked me. I it's a kids show, but it's hooked me. I want to see what happens next. And so I think, but we can blame Disney for that, or we can realize that there's so many options of what you could watch that if they don't hook you, you may not come back.
Exactly.
Whereas Looney Tunes, that was the only thing to watch on Saturday morning. Like they had you back.
Right.
Whether you wanted to or not, they had you back. But now they have to hook my kids. They didn't necessarily have to hook you.
That's a really good point as far as the options go. And I think the inundation of options and just like the infusion of all this possibility, it's not something that you just see with kids like watching things, but like there's like the whole dating world where people are like constantly swiping and constantly thinking about like the next person they're going to meet, where they don't necessarily completely engage with that person they're actually with. And that's just one example. I'm sure we could think of a bunch.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so a lot of Christians feel guilty when they struggle emotionally because they think stronger faith should mean fewer emotional battles. How do you
That's kind of an interesting piece, because I can understand it on one level, and yet I think that also kind of puts certain emotions into a bad category. And I don't think it's kind of like the dysregulation regulation piece. It's not bad or good. It's something that just is. And suffering is a quality of the human life. It is built in. It's part of the fall. And what we have to do is lean into what God has given us as our tools to utilize to get through each day. And that doesn't mean that we're doing it wrong because somehow suffering has come into us. Now, there are certain things that will make us more vulnerable that we need to be aware of. We don't need to walk into situations blindly.
Right.
And there's a lot of research on, if you've been through trauma, you're more likely to experience trauma. And that's a little bit of a different conversation. But I think that there's a way in which suffering actually gives you the opportunity to know God in a different way. And I can't remember the scripture exactly, but it talks about
I think I have it up.
Oh, go for it.
I think, tell me if this is the one you're thinking of. This is Romans 5, 3-5. Not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance. Endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who's been given to us.
Absolutely. That one. And then the other one that I was thinking of is Paul talking about his thorn.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where he rejoices in his weakness, because that is something that points directly back to God. It's like the places in our lives now, I'm not saying that we all need to be like, I'm really bad at this. This is amazing. But it's like, no, this is an area that God is working on in me. This is something that I can trust that he is doing something with that I may not see in that particular moment in time. It may not be till much later. It may not be for a generation or so before you see it.
It may not be in our lifetime that
exactly.
we see it. It may not be about or for us. It may be about or for somebody else.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's 2 Corinthians 12:8. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. And he goes on to say, I'll rejoice all the more gladly about my weakness, that the power of Christ may rest in.
Yes.
Amen. Now, I want to put a couple of things out there real quick. If you're hearing a popping, we have what's called Thinking Putty. And Thinking Putty, if you want to sponsor us, that's great.
Yes.
But we actually use it as we podcast. And both Betsy and I have a big wad of it in our hands. And so you're hearing some popping. That's not your speakers.
Probably
okay?
none of you noticed, but we're going to drive Nate nuts.
I know.
Thanks,
He is. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. The second thing is, Betsy, one of the reasons we love having you on is because you are a Christian counselor. You don't necessarily put it out there. And have you been to seminary? Am I right?
have. I was trained at Reformed Theological Seminary in Jackson, Mississippi.
All of these things that we find out little tidbits a little bit at a time. But I appreciate that, because I think sometimes when we bring counselor, or you're the only one that we've brought on, but sometimes people see the word counselor and they think, oh, here's another secular view. Mm-hmm. But you have this beautiful way of intertwining it, your faith and your education around counseling. How have you been able to balance that out?
Oh, I think a lot of that, and one of the conversations we're going to have a little bit later on is about community. And I think that goes back to community majorly. I actually just heard, I think it was last week, that one of my professors, one of my mentors, Dr. Jim Hurley, passed away.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. And thank you for his family. And just, I think that he did beautiful ministry and integrated psychology and theology so well. It was something that I am still reaping the benefits of it, and I pray that my clients are as well, because he just embodied that so well, just the living presence of Christ, while also giving you research and practical guidance and all of those pieces. And that was one thing, being trained under such incredible people was amazing. And the opportunity to do ministry alongside of being in school, I think, was something that allowed me to naturally kind of work my mind in such a way where I was pouring out while I was also being poured into. And I think that's so necessary for us to stay healthy and rejuvenated and engaged.
Yes. So I want to go back to suffering. Let's go back to suffering.
Fun times.
As we talk about emotional resilience, do you feel like, okay, first of all, do we have to go through suffering? Can we work around it? Is there any way to work around it?
You know, I would say on a very like real philosophical level, no. I would just say that you could try. I don't think you would be successful.
I would like to try sometimes.
it's like I mean you could put that effort out there, but is it worth that kind of avoidance of what could make us grow? I don't necessarily think so. And I think there's actually a mercy, which sounds weird and very paradoxical, which is how God works, a mercy in some of the suffering, because he teaches us things that we would need to know that we wouldn't otherwise know. And there are things that prepare us. I can think of so many experiences, and I'm sure listeners can, where it was like I was going through something. I didn't want to be going through it. And I found out later that there was something being built in me that I didn't even know I needed. And it's not about me. It's about what God is doing in me and what he was doing in the other people in the experience as well.
Okay, but yet we seem to live in a generation, whether it's a parent, I'm gonna own my stuff here in a second, grandparent or whoever, we don't want to see our kids go through that. So my grandson just got thrown into a pool. It was his final testing for his swimming in his sweat clothes, and he had to flip over and float on his back.
Okay.
And I got this video, and he's struggling. I'm hearing him going, like that. And I'm like, why did they do this?
They confronted him with the worst possible situation.
They did. Now, he was in swim class.
Yeah.
But they wanted him to be able to, if he ever fell off the boat, he would feel comfortable.
Yeah.
As grandma, I'm like, why are we doing this? Yeah. But for them, they wanted to build him, make him stronger. They didn't avoid the hard.
Right.
I might have avoided that hard.
Yeah.
I'm a little afraid of water. So what happens when we start avoiding that? When we start fighting the battles for our kids, when we start making it easier, then we don't get that emotional resilience, do we?
No, not necessarily. I think that if we start kind of cherry picking experiences that we don't want, and I'm just going to speak to like raising children because that's kind of where we're at, but there are other ways to look at this. If we cherry pick experiences for our children, we're taking away opportunities for them to be able to build confidence and self-efficacy, trust in their environment, trust in their own skills. And I mean, I think there's a way in which, and sometimes, I mean, you need to use your wisdom and work your way around stuff. I'm not saying that that's not what we need to do, but oftentimes growth is found in the situations that we most want to avoid. And if avoidance is, and protecting your children is different than avoidance. I'm not saying that those two are equivalent, but there are certain things that, do we have to protect them, or is it wiser to allow them to wrestle with that experience? I think that's something that's very important to ask yourself as a parent and as a person. Is it better for me to avoid this situation, or am I going to be able to have a greater amount of growth if I wrestle with this, ask for counsel, really dig deep into this and figure out what this is about and how God is using it in my life?
Do you think we're going to pay the price for fighting the battles for our kids and not having them get thrown into a pool in their sweat clothes?
I think that there are some people out there, there's some discussion of the kind of consequences there are to that. There's an excellent book called Codding the American Mind by Jonathan Haidt, and he is the same author of the book, The Anxious Generation. And the coddling of the American mind is about more of the university system and how things are being discussed and argued and how that influences individual functioning and growth. And I think that as as late teenagers, early adults enter college, that's a very critical period for learning how to think. And just coddling the American mind is an interesting study in talking about those possibilities of if we adjust things to prevent pain or to prevent someone's feelings being hurt, if we adjust things just to avoid that, we are preventing them from being able to have that resilience to handle different perspectives, to handle someone that has an entirely different opinion than them. And that's one of the things as a counselor who is Christian, but really operates in a lot of ways in the secular world, I don't divorce the two. I think that my role as a Christian is embedded in the counseling. It's just part of my worldview and who I am. I think that with that, we can lose our sense of a grasp on values. And it's not that I think, and this might sound a little controversial, it's not that I think everyone needs to have the same values as me as a practitioner, but there are certain things that bring you towards health. And being able to critically think through things, the ability to tolerate different perspectives, the ability to put yourself in different situations that require different qualities within you, all promote health. And that's something that I'm about as a counselor. And I think, as ministers and working in the church and the world, that's what we're trying to promote for the people that we work with.
My mom could have written the book Hard Parenting instead of Gentle Parenting. She could have written the book Hard Parenting. When I was in high school, I had a teacher that did not like me. I was in advanced biology, and there was no question. And my mom even admitted that. Oh, I see that. She doesn't like you. And I was like, I have the opportunity to transfer out. I want to transfer out. And my mom was like, oh, no. And I was like, but I'm getting in trouble with you for what she's saying I'm doing. And she goes, oh, yeah. And I went, so can I transfer out? And she goes, oh, no. She goes, because you're going to learn in life that there are difficult people to deal with, and now is your training ground. This is it. And I was like, at the time, I didn't get it, but I've told that story as I've aged much more because we can't go around it. And if we go around it and we make these paths around hard, we don't get all of those things that you just talked about that we need to be able to deal with the hard in our lives and hard situations.
Yeah, and Sarah and I had to walk this on vacation with our kids. So Caleb and his cousins are playing in the woods. They're far enough away from us that we can't see what they're doing, and they're doing something that I 5 minutes before had told them not to. And so he gets this cut in his face. And it didn't need stitches. It wasn't crazy bad, but it bled and it was rough. Like it's rough on us to see when we see our kids be hurt. And so afterwards, Sarah and I are processing it, and we've read the Jonathan Haidt book. We understand that our kids need to go through hard and face real danger in order to help with their anxiety later on. And so that's kind of been a philosophy in our parenting. And Sarah said, well, I just don't want to see him be hurt. And I said, well, yes, I agree. And I'd calmed down a little quicker. It took her a little longer. And I said, yes, but the way we've decided to raise our kids, this is the risk that they're going to face, right? This is what we have to deal with, which is really hard because, I'm glad my brother was there because he's bleeding and I'm passing out, almost passing out because I can't deal with blood.
He doesn't like that.
I get it.
And so it is really hard and kind of traumatic as parents, but it's like that slow down to say, well, what type of kids do we want to raise? And if we want to raise, I think what you're talking about, this resilient kid, then they're going to have to, now again,
they're going to have to not go after the teacher. They're going to have to face some of the hard.
Face risks.
They're
going to, because we could have learned from that, and we could have said, well, we're keeping him right by us. He's 9, but we're going to hold our hands whenever he's in the woods, and he's never going to get hurt in the woods again. But that's not how we raise him to go through hard. Now we were there with him. We talked to him. We were emotionally available when it happened, right? All those things. But we had to let him face the risk, which means, now again, he's been in the woods by himself and not been hurt. But that time he did get hurt. And that's the risk that he's going to face.
And that's the piece where he's going to be able to look back on that, know he has the emotional support to handle that. But at the same time, he's able to be like, look at that, I have a battle scar.
And that's a huge point too, Betsy, emotional support. And we're going to talk about community in a few episodes coming up. But it's something that if they don't learn to do when they're younger, we can't expect them to do when they're older. And we can gentle parent them a lot when they're younger. And there's a day we leave.
Yes.
And we need them to be adults that can stand on their own 2 feet and throw their kid into the pool with clothes on. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is hard as a parent because our desire is to protect and provide and all that we should be, but it's hard to let them face those things and support them as opposed to fight it for them, right?
And it's kind of like, it's weird that the way that you're talking about that is making me thinking about like exposure therapy and how people recover from OCD and anxiety is by exposing themselves to their triggers, exposing themselves to that which brings distress. And as a parent, you really had to confront that yourself, and Sarah did as well. And you did that together as a united front to be able to be in a regulated, stable, secure place for your son so that he could internalize that to be able to handle that later.
Yeah.
So you gave him a gift, and at the same time, you didn't take it away from him what that opportunity was. So you're scaffolding in his brain and his nervous system, like these different aspects of things that he's going to be able to rely on later.
That's cool.
Yeah, well said. All right, so a listener, somebody who's listening today may say, yeah, I'm good at this. I'm good. I've got emotional resilience. But today, maybe the past week, past year, I have nothing left in the tank. I am dry. I'm spiritually dry. I don't know what to do. So where do they begin to start stepping forward again and scaffolding, rebuilding?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's a really good question and something that people are going to encounter in different ways in their lives. And the piece that I would kind of start with is holding compassion and kindness for yourself being there and not berating yourself for being uncomfortable, not berating yourself for being in suffering, but not wearing it as a badge of honor. You don't have to make your identity in that I am suffering. It's an aspect of your life. It's not your whole life. So that's kind of a perspective taking piece that's important. But some real practical things, some things that you can do. One of the things that I talk a lot about is regulation. So working with the nervous system. If you are in like fight or flight or crisis mode, there are some things that you can do that will bring you back to a more stable, secure place. And one of those things is movement. Movement will bring you back into regulation. It will bring those neurotransmitters to your brain that will calm you. And the good thing is movement is free. You don't have to have a ton of stuff for it. You can go for a walk for 20 minutes. And honestly, that bilateral stimulation to your brain will get both sides of your brain active, will help you think clearer.
And for you physically too, studies are showing that being sedentary is absolutely one of the worst things. It can age you as fast as smoking, I read.
It's incredibly isolating as well. I work in an office all day, and I am a counselor. A lot of times I'm sitting talking to someone. If I'm with a kid, I'm playing, so I move around a little bit. But the consequence of our modern world in some ways is like we have to be intentional about movement. And that is something that, like, if you're not doing, that is something that is going to be a risk factor for you. Another thing that I encourage is creative activity or expression. So you don't have to be a great painter. You don't have to be an incredible artist that sells things. You can do paint by number, color in a coloring book. It doesn't have to be anything amazing. It's not about the product. It's about the process. And I like to think of using different emotions, like having containers for them. And I'm not going to say they're bad emotions, but emotions a lot of people don't like to feel, like sadness and anger. Those are the particular ones I find really need containers.
So by containers, you're saying a place that you place that.
And work it out. Yeah. And so, like, one of the ways that I've always encouraged people, and I try to live this out, it's a little more challenging as I age, but doing exercise and intentional movement as much as possible, because that will transform your mental state with those neurotransmitters we talked about before. The other way to do that is creative expression, which actually also gives you the opportunity to give form to some of the chaos that you have internally. And bringing order to that chaos can actually be very reassuring.
Don't you think it's one of the reasons sourdough bread
I
has
love
taken
it.
off?
Absolutely. Because it's like the sensory piece is very regulating. It's like putting it all together and seeing this mess and then having something beautiful come out of it.
Yeah.
And then everybody gets to enjoy it together. So it's a co-regulating activity. So there's a lot of beautiful things about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anything else we can do? We can hold a space for compassion. We can regulate. We have the containers. Anything else that you really recommend when you just feel like, man, I'm just struggling. I'm dry.
Yeah, absolutely. I think finding inspiration in places that have either worked before or something new can be very influential. I mean, I have had a journey. This is a little self-disclosure here, but I've had a journey with depression over the course of my life. One of the best things that I think God has done is like give me a love for reading, a love for books, a love for material. And I can remember sometimes being up very late at night, being in just kind of like the throes of the sadness. And I'd either be reading scripture, reading books, taking in new things that either like gave a structure to my experience, helped me understand that a different way, or helped me learn something new. And that was a wise way to use time that wasn't navel gazing, wasn't just like me looking at myself being like, woe is me. And that's not because I'm this great person. It's because God has given me this ability with my mind to be able to go different places and learn different things. So I think reading, consuming things that you can learn, things that you could be passionate about, things that God could do in you. Even volunteering is a great way to spend your time. If you're feeling terrible yourself, pouring into someone else's life and seeing what that does in their reaction is going to, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've walked into, and it's not like a crazy amount, but there have been some times I've walked into kids counseling sessions and I've been like, I have absolutely nothing. I have absolutely nothing to give, and I'm still using my skills. I'm still using my training. And then God does something in that child, and I see the joy of the child, or I see the shift in somebody that I'm having a conversation with. And then there's something about my nervous system that is like, okay, like they can do this. I can do this. Yeah. Like this possibility is there. And that like that opportunity to pour into someone else does simultaneously pour back into me.
Amen.
Yeah, and I think like it's easy to people to think because like, well, the three of you are in ministry, so you get to pour it. But I think like everybody, from the person that's selling this to working at Chick-fil-A to like how do we look at our careers and vocations is yes, I make money from it. Yes, I have a job, but my job is to serve other people. And I think every career has a part of that, whether you're sitting at a computer and programming, whether you're serving, whatever it is, like that we reprogram your mind a little to think about the fact, no, I get to go to work today to serve other people, to do some good for the people around me.
Absolutely. And step outside of my own context and be able to provide something different, something new, something maybe inspirational to somebody else.
Yeah. And that goes back to being hands and feet of Jesus to your neighbors. Maybe you're retired and you don't have a place you're going to work, but you're home. Do you know your neighbors? Do you know their names? Do you do something that helps lighten their load in some way? All right. Before we wrap up, have you read Theo of Golden?
I haven't. I need to read it. I've heard amazing things about it.
Everybody's buzzing about it.
Okay.
Yeah. 2 people gave it to me for my birthday, and I already owned it. But I haven't read it yet.
There it is. That's a rave review.
I know. That's what I thought too. So that was totally a side conversation. But thank you so much, Betsy. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for having this conversation. And we look forward in the next couple of weeks to more conversations with you.
And thank you for the blessing being able to be here and share this time with you all.
All right. Have a great day. Thanks.